maybe, I don't know. So what we want to cover in this lesson is that uh, what is an API, and why is that needed? How is it done? And how do we test it and so forth? Kind of a high level. I won't be able to demo you an example at this moment, but just want to show you why it's there and what are some tools that you need to know of. Even though you have done an HTML class, and you build a website, something similar to what you're looking at right now. Let's say test automation engineering. The usual sites that you go and do business with or pleasure, like Priceline, for example, it's not as simple as the HTML code. Even though you see some HTML code here, but all of these is handled by a project that has code like this. Okay. Same thing that we do for testing purposes. The developers have application projects, and it might say Priceline right here. And then you open up and they have folders, and they have Java or some other code bases that are going to fill up these folders and packages. And they work together in certain logic and harmony to work with this UI and work with a bunch of stuff in the back end, right? So suppose you have an UI right here that you're looking at, and this could be Priceline.com. There are layers of things. So on top, what you're seeing is HTML. That's the top layer. There are some other layers, but more importantly for you to understand is there is a back layer here that will transport data back and forth. Okay. So on the back layer, there's data going into a place and then coming back out from a location, and generally that's the server. Okay.
Hello.
And this server may be connected with something like a database, right? That has storage of data. Get a bigger font here. And usually it's drawn as a cylinder everywhere, so I'll just draw the same way, and it's like a data stack right there. So information is going to be coming, a call will be made to the database, and then information will be passing here, and then that will get passed all the way into the website. And that's happening all the time. Every button that you have, generally speaking, it has that functionality built in where if you press that button, it's going to send out a call. And that call is going to go to the server. Sometimes it may need to go into the database and get stuff. Most of the times it will need to communicate with the database. Otherwise, it may just do some things and then come back with some results that you might see, for whatever reason that is. For Priceline's sake, when you go to Priceline.com and you type in let's say you want to go to Austin. All right. I want you to look at this. So if you inspect the UI, you'll be able to see what's going in and what's coming out. And that's the beauty of this. So I want to show you what's happening here. So far, you've been working with this part called element, this tab. You have not gone any farther. I want to introduce you to something called network.
Okay.
And sometimes you may see the network tab here. Otherwise, you expand these, and these are other tabs, and developers work heavily with these other tabs. So if you go to network, and in here, you're gonna see all the calls that are being made down here displayed as a row. Each row is a call being made. All right, let's take a look at this first call that was already there. I didn't press anything. If you just go to a page, like if I refresh, if I delete this and excuse me, deleting, still doing something. I didn't expect all that calls, but let me try this again. Priceline.com. You see all this is happening right here?
Yeah.
Okay, what that is a request is being made, and actually there is that many, looks like. Each of these automatically, as you load the page, is interacting with the server and trying to get something from the server. It could be this image right here, logo. Sometimes that's like the logo, or let me see if I can decode some here. Something to do with cookies, storing them in cache, data. A lot of these things I don't understand. But one thing as a tester, you need to understand that these calls that are being made, they need to be successful once they send out the call, and then they receive the type of data that they need to receive in order for this page to work. If this failed, then this page is not going to be able to work, or something is wrong. And you, as a tester, need to just pick up on, okay, what's wrong, or that there is something wrong. And that's what's going to be required of you, not necessarily why it's wrong, because that's the answer developer is going to provide. You just have to say, hey, this particular call, anything that's in red, okay, that's something didn't go through, something wrong with it. All right, so we got an invalid right here. These are probably not major, and therefore they're kind of ignoring it. I don't see anything other than invalid that got failed. But often what happens is some old images was there, or a link to load some of these images. Like this Priceline is an image right here.
Yeah.
Even though it's text, you see, but it's a logo and it's like an image. This VIP icon, that's an image. A lot of these things are there to display those things. They call and get that and display it here as an image. And old ones are being replaced by new ones, but if they don't delete these calls for the old ones, they're still there. And they might come back as an invalid, but it's not going to fail anything. Website is going to work fine. But developers have a way to clean this up, but sometimes nobody they're lazy. Nobody's bugging them. Nobody's saying, hey, you need to clean this up. The project manager is only worried about, does the page work? And that's it. And after that, to clean up and make it fancy, nobody cares about it. Now, if this invalid call was throwing some sort of error in this page, that would have become a problem, and everybody would jump on it and try to fix it. But in this particular case, they're getting ignored. But any one of these, like collector, I don't know what it does. Okay, this right here, IGC, and then badge over here. There's another one. There's this one, prop.json. So these have, if you click on it, you'll be able to see there's an URL for it. Okay? This URL is the location of the application. All right? They may have an internal application called folder, and there's a called CDNO. I don't know what that is, but they named it that way. And these are the forward slash, these numbers are basically different folders. Okay, just like we had our HTML in a folder scheme.
Yeah.
Maybe C drive, and then users, and then we went to our username, and then maybe desktop, and these are basically these forward slashes that you're gonna see. So it's tapping into a folder scheme, and if they wanted to look at it, they would look at it like this in their actual code base. It's still a folder scheme. This folder, ISC test, is a folder inside my C drive.
Yeah.
Let me show you. Here, project, ISC test.
Yep.
And inside that ISC test, I have the same thing as these if I expand it out. I got the input files right here. I have the source code, which is right here. If I open up the source, then I'm going to have test and main, just like I have it here. Test, main, and test. If I expand these two, I'll be seeing the same thing that I would see right here. Understand? And see, there's my URL for it. Okay. So if they have a code somewhere in one of these files for that request to work, that's what it's getting displayed right here in this URL. All right.
Okay.
So this is the location of that particular file. Chances are it's this last location here. Why did they name it this way? It's just a number. I don't know. Notice something different about this one is prop.json with a question mark. That is a query.
Okay.
And equal to this, that query is tapping into the database and looking for that data.
Okay.
And with that data, there may be something there in the database that's going to be returned. Okay? And look at this line here. Request method is called get method. It's going to call and try to get something. And there's a status code right here is 200. And you need to understand what this is, what this get request is, what is this status code, and what does this URL mean. Okay? So any questions about what does the URL mean?
No.
On a high level. Okay. And I don't really know what kind of query by this question mark is doing in that database. If I knew, I would be a good developer for Priceline. But those guys are expert. They know what they're doing. Maybe they're masking something here that you or hacker won't be able to tell how they're doing that. Having these URLs, by the way, it is like a direct access into their file or even the database. Sometimes you can just copy this and put it in the website web address and get something. Look at this. I already got something, right? So as soon as I sent this out, what returned was a JSON with the status success. Okay, and hackers often go in and take these URL and go in and try to get access and control into the server. How do they do it? I don't know. But this is a kind of a like a hole in the wall for people to get to this location in their server without any security issues, because it's totally open. It doesn't require, hey, you need a password or something. No, nothing. It's a hole there, and you can get in and do something. But if I scroll down here, the response, sometimes the response is displayed here. If not, you will see a tab called response. And if I click open that, this over here, it's supposed to show that JSON, but it didn't. I don't know why. But generally, if you put this in here and you get that, and you're supposed to get that, if that was expected, then that is your response that you got from the server, and server may have picked it up from the database. In this preview or response section, that should display. In this case, it didn't, but if you see that, you'll be able to see it in there as well. Questions before I move on to a little bit deeper?
No question.
Okay. So another thing that you're going to see is difference between a post request and a get request. Where was that get? That's a post. That's a big one. This is a post. Collect. This is a post. Batch. There you go. iframe PC. This one is a get request. And what happens if I paste this one? Invalid request. This is blocking me from some sort of security, maybe, because over here it's getting fine. There's no errors. Totally okay. Notice where it's going. It could have something to do with Google Analytics.
Yeah.
And what Google Analytics does is keeps track of how many people accessing the websites and things like that, and provide various companies with services like data that you got this many people hit at this time of the day and so forth. So that's called Google Analytics. And it's possible that this URL has something to do with that. Anything starting from this question mark is the query. So action equal to something right here, and then there's an and there, and then client ID equals to that. You see the similarity between our database query that we usually do. So so even though the URL looks like this, action equal to that, and then ID equals to that, and it doesn't have the select statement, the select statement is located in that file where it ended up, which could be the last thing it ended up was iframe RPC. Okay, so the code is there and the query is there. In the URL it looks like this, but there is a simple select query that they're doing in their Java class to get the data out of the database. Let's see on the preview here, nothing displayed. That's not very helpful, but we saw when we tried that it gave us an error, but that's okay. Let's take a look at a post request. So let me say this one here. The difference between a GET request and a POST request is GET request is just going to tap into the database and get some information for you from here. And it's not going to change anything inside the database. Okay? It's not going to make any modifications, just whatever existing data. Display it. It's going to search it, narrow it down, and then display it to you. Okay? A post request, on the other hand, is whenever you're filling out a form, for example, if this is a form here, come on, there you go. Instead of a button, you're providing a whole bunch of information. Yes? Name and so on for, let's say you're opening up an account and you provided your personal information. All of this information has to get transferred into the server. Right? And so for that to happen, there is a specific location. So that would still be another URL. Okay. It's going to be sent to that URL, and that URL location is going to be nothing but a Java class again in your project. And that could be stored in the server. And it goes into the Java class. Java class will handle that request, and it comes with this data. How is this data going to get transferred from your computer to the server? In what method? What format? One of two, right?
Yeah.
What are they?
The get and post.
Get and post is the call type, but how will the data get encapsulated and then shipped off?
XML and JSON.
Correct. So XML or in JSON format, this is gonna get packaged and then shipped off. Now this is called a post request because this data not only going to get shipped off, and it's also going to get shipped off and sent to the database and posted in the database. Okay. Database is going to write this data as a new entry in here. They could use one table, they could have multiple tables, depending on whatever the logic is. Based on this, they can have credit card. There could be a table for credit cards. There could be a table for personal information. There could be a table for addresses and stuff. And however way they want to design the logic, that data can be sent out and added as a record for those particular tables. Okay. Now, the post request sometimes is the same thing as posting plus a get request. So the post request is going to do everything. We got the get request, which just gets the information, does not modify anything. But if we say post request, automatically understand that that's also going to do whatever the get request does.
Okay.
Okay.
And do more.
It does more.
Okay.
It does what the get request does, and then some of adding stuff there. Okay. Now, could it just be that this is going to add something and not get anything from there? Yeah, sometimes. But often when you submit something, let's say a form, do you see that it comes back with the success, or it tells you either, oh, there was an error because this field is not acceptable, or your password needs to be stronger? You've seen situations like that, yes? So what they do is anytime they have a post request, automatically there's a need for a get request in there too. That you post things. What if your name is too long and it doesn't fit on the table? Then it's going to come back and give you an error. But even if it didn't give you an error and you got all the data correct for it to post, it still needs to come back and say success.
Yep.
So that's why I haven't seen a post request just a post. Most of the time, what I saw is like it comes back with a response as well, right?
Okay.
So let's take a look at this in a real world here. Let me delete this. We got this post request. Then you're probably asking, what am I sending out? Well, I didn't send out anything. Then you may be asking, well, you just got to this page. You didn't even send anything. The page automatically sends something, and it could be maybe your location. It may be picking up my location that I'm in Irving, and also it's all looking into the dates and saying, oh, current date is in his computer, the current date is that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to send that out. Okay, I don't know. One of these calls are doing that, and it would be a nightmare for me to find it if I wasn't in that team. But let's take a look at this. And I'm doing this on the fly because I don't really know.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I've never really checked it here. We'll see. If you scroll all the way down, you're going to see, most likely you will see what they're sending out. Not really. Payload. Yes. So anytime they say payload, that's what's going to be sent out. And in this case, it's sending out a token. This is a code. You're going to carry this token, and it's like a session ID. I don't want to go there. There's a lot into it. Let me find a simpler one. So let me check this here. Expand this into one second. Come on. There you go. Many times you'll be able to see the payload as a JSON. And I'm trying to show you that, if I can find one. It's not displayed as JSON, but this is something that they're sending out,
Okay.
and it's getting a response, but this is not a good website. Let me show you my website here
Okay.
for demo. So here I am on the dashboard page of this Masergy, and if I inspect this in the network area, you would have to go into that network and refresh that screen for this to populate again. Where did you go? Right here. I'll cross this off. So all of these calls right here. And if I look at these, header is a get request. Look at this. You see JSON?
Yeah. Yep.
So response is a JSON. It's a get request. Here's
Okay.
isc.dev.masergy.com, gateway API properties, keycloak URL, and that's the last class that it's going into, and that's providing this data out. Let's find a post request. Generally, a post request is going to be after I submit something. Notice there is something called a put request. But all of these, you will see a JSON. If I click through every one of these, there is a response. This one is a get request, gives me true or false. This call, notice, SD-WAN flow device access. This is like a Boolean search.
Okay.
A call is made to check to see if this customer has this product purchased called SD-WAN flow device. And if this comes out as true, then in that case, this page that I just showed you, where is it? Yeah, it's gonna show this menu right here.
Yeah.
And all these pages are going to display. If that comes out as false, then for some Java logic or whatnot, this won't get displayed. And you'll be able to see all other menus, but not the SD-WAN orchestrator. Okay. So those are some of the things, and I still can't find a put request. But understand that you're going to see a JSON right here. Let me create a put request. Let's see. If I go to manage contacts, and I want us to do this side by side. This is dev environment, so something might be broken. I don't know. We'll see. This button will clear this entry for you.
Okay.
And I cleared it up. And if I say add contact, nothing is being called or asked right here, right now.
Yeah.
And if I type in some name, James Dean as an user, I'm adding a contact here. James Dean. We already see there's a call went out. It's probably searching to see if this name already exists or something. It's a post request, so if I go all the way down here, look at this.
Yeah, that's why give me that JSON request.
You see, so a logic is built in here. It's trying to see if James is already existing in the database. or not.
Yeah.
And it's posting it. Why, I don't know. It could probably do a get. I don't know that how the mechanism works, but it is sending out that JSON and it's doing some sort of query. It's searching something in that location of the file, and it's responding back with this data. And if we look at it, it's also JSON. Looks like it's sending out this information of that guy who's already there.
Yeah.
And it's going to maybe try to compare my data here and see if there's too much similarities. It's going to throw an error for me. But let me finish this and see what happens. I'm going to put in a fake email at email.com. Phone number, this is mandatory, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Nothing else is mandatory. No more calls went out. This call went out here. It's also post request. It sent out the username as a payload in JSON format, and it got back something here. See that total? 0?
Yeah.
What do you think that could mean?
That
There,
0 matching.
yeah, 0 matching. There's no one out there with that same username. If it had another, or maybe if it came back with the 1, this would probably give me a warning here that that this is already using. Yeah. So I don't want to mimic. I don't even know what's out there, so I don't want to waste your time with that. Now, enough information, and I should be able to say create a user. If I create a user, obviously a call is going to go out right here. And it's going to be a post request, I know for sure, because it's going to store these data in the database.
Yeah, posting it.
It's also going to respond back with something. So let's try that and watch right here what happens if I hit create only. Notice I got a success message on the UI, but on the back end, 2 calls went out. One is this one, and this one is a post request. Okay. URL is pretty complex because it's trying to go into multiple tables, maybe adding them and structuring and getting ball rolling for this new person that I added into the account. And if I scroll all the way down, I should be able to see what's getting stored, but somehow it's being masked. And I don't know, but you should be able to see some sort of JSON in here with the stuff that I just sent out, the username and first name, last name, phone number. I don't know why it's not showing right here. Now, what's the response? The response is a 1. It could be, this could be just a code. 1 means, hey, it got stored, or 1 record added in the table. If it comes back with the 0, then there could be a logic in the code that go ahead and throw a notification saying, sorry, not successful. We could not add a contact into the database, but 1 could be a positive thing. But again, that's all the developers and your team is going to know. If you're in the testing field, they're basically going to tell you everything. Like they're going to give you this URL. Okay? They're going to tell you whether it's a post request or a GET request. If it's a POST request, they're also going to give you a JSON payload. Sometimes you'll be able to find it here. If it's not here, you ask your team is going to give you the JSON.
Okay.
And what you want to look for is always this 200. 200.
200. Okay.
Status code there's status code of 100, 200, 300, 400, up to 500. And the status code of 200 is the best, meaning everything success, all good to go. All right. Let me pull up a notepad here, or even bring it up here. HTTP status codes. Images. Okay. This website is better. Want to find the simplest. Take a look at this. Okay.
Okay.
The first one right here is the 100 type of error.
Okay.
And there's a 101, there's a 102, 103. Same thing for 200 level errors, messages. 201, 203, 204, that kind of stuff. All of these, like this is 300 level, 400 level, and 500 level. All right. So always this 200 level is success. Yeah. You're making a call and you're getting what you want. Either it's a GET request or a POST request. The 100 is only used for certain things that are, the success doesn't depend on it. It's not even making any kind of calls into the database or servers. I don't really know, but we never work with this at all.
Okay.
So what we see is these 200 is what we want to see. This 300 level, I've never seen one. And it says redirection, and I don't know if it's like, when you relocate from one place to the other, you put a forwarding address into the post office.
Yeah.
All right. So if they have that kind of situation where the page was over here in this file, but now they moved it to a different location, they're still working on it, they didn't roll that whole thing over. In that case, you may get this 300 level of status coming in. I've never seen one. What you're going to see is this 400 level errors and these 500 level errors. Okay, so these two are bad. Now, generally, if you see a 400, then this is going to be categorized as a bad request, meaning when you go into this, the call that is being made, for example, this, let me close this out. There's too many open. So if I go in here, there could be a bad call going out from this URL.
Okay.
I could potentially have a wrong number right here. The developer could have a wrong query over here, and then this could come out as a 400. And what that's telling is that something is wrong with the code. Even though over here it's saying client error, but something wrong with the code. It's not communicating with the server properly, and that needs to be changed. Maybe the search was done pretty bad, so the JSON that's going out is not good. Okay, and the developer is not handling it properly. If a bad password you put in, like a duplicate password, you're supposed to put two same passwords, but you put two separate passwords, and it went out, and the developer did not put a good code to come back with the error message, a nice little one, it might give you a 400 error saying that we're not able to, it's not saying anything. It's just going to come back with the 400. And that could be a bug that you can kind of dig farther saying, why did this get a 400? Maybe that there is an error. Maybe the payload is bad. And if you investigate, you're going to see some restrictions there in the payload. And maybe the developer didn't add a logic to provide a better response. Instead, they're not handling that 400 properly. It's still there, out there. But anytime you see a 400, developer needs to write a little more code, and instead of displaying the 400, it could show a error message pop up in the screen saying, hey, we need matching password. Your password is not matching. With me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is bad, and this is bad. This is good. What is this? This is server. So often you're going to notice that the server has some downtime or needs to be restarted or is missing some connections with the database, and it's going to throw some errors. And those errors are going to come up as a 500 errors, and they're going to display on the page. I might have a 500 error over here. Let me see. Let me show you in a second.
Okay.
But I want to finish this. So I got that. Let me see this one here. This is a post request. Does it have a payload? There's the payload. So this is the call that's being made to post this information I just provided.
Yeah.
James Dean, and it was taking a lot of other fields with it. Notice it also called something before this and generated a customer. No. This is the customer ID for this customer right here. It was getting those data as well as it was sending it out, and responds with a customer with a contact ID.
Yeah.
This contact that I created, it gave out a contact ID for that. James Dean, I don't know if this website is going to show me the contact ID. Edit contact.
But just for the back end.
Yeah, it's for the backend. Now I have a backend application that's going to show that. Let me do a quick thing. Landscape. This is our backend application.
Okay.
Only employees have access to this. I'm looking it up under this. Let me close all this extra. This is the customer ID. And here's my internal application. If I type in here, this is set up this way. List of contacts. I just created a contact. I can search the contact ID right here. So if I paste it from there, this one, now I could be wrong, okay? But this does look like a contact ID. I've never done this. Oh, look at this.
Oh, look at that. That's him right there.
There's that James Dean contact was created. I can click here, and that's going to give me his information. And from this internal application, look at this button here, add portal access. If I click on this James Dean is now going to have a username and password to log into this website.
Okay.
All right. Even though this is what the customers see, there's the other website right here that customers don't have any clue, that the engineers can go in and set things up, and they're kind of interconnected. I can control things from here that will get displayed on this website right here. Most companies are working like that. Bank of America, Chase, Priceline, you name it. For every single website that you go and buy things, there may be 2 to 10 different internal applications that are managing a lot of other things that we don't get to see. We don't have access into. Okay?
Okay.
Let me show you a 500 level error. I'm going to the dev. See that pop-up error?
Yes.
Okay, so that is some sort of an error that's going to pop up right here. So if you see an error coming up, open up this console developer tool, go into network, refresh the page so that you see what calls are failing. Look at this, 200, 200, reds are bad.
Yeah, a lot of red.
Yep, there's that pop-up came up, and one of these calls failing, and that's why it's giving me that. So if I scroll up from here, trying to see which one, look right here.
500, yeah.
If I click open, that's the call being made in the URL. It's a GET request, it's 500. And you want to look at response. There's supposed to be a certain response from there that it's not coming out, but it's coming out with an error. Error on GET request. Let's see what else. Connect to Masergy port. It's a server port. Maybe it's not functioning. Where did it go? Right there, port 443. And you might want to talk to the platform engineers that handle the servers and tell them that, hey, ICF 500 connection refused. So is something down on the back end? You can kind of ask like that.
Okay.
What are you going to give them? Well, you're going to copy this from here. Get, and then this 500. Just like this. Let me get the notepad out. So I'm going to get it in a notepad. And I'm going to write response, because that one doesn't come up all in here. I'll click on response, and I'll copy this as well. And then I'll put it right here. Okay?
Okay.
Then I'll copy this whole thing and send it out to the platform engineers on Slack and telling them, hey, we see a 500 error for this endpoint. We call this endpoint. And here's the response. Is there something down in the backend? Something needs to be restarted, and they take it from there. That's it. Okay.
Okay.
Questions so far?
No questions so far.
All right. What am I missing here? You understand the difference between GET and POST request?
Yeah.
That's going to be an interview question.
Okay, difference between GET and POST.
So
Let me write that down in my notepad real quick.
Yeah.
And then also PUT request or no?
So you want to know request type, and it will be GET and POST mainly.
Okay.
And you can also say PUT request.
Okay.
And just kind of search up on that.
Got it.
Homework for you. They might ask you what's the difference between GET and POST request, and explain the process. Okay. How do you do API testing? That would be the next thing that I'm going to show you on. But generally, uh, our automation will pick
Mm-hmm.
up on these 500s.
Okay.
It's capable of going to the page and look at the console and read up from the console. And if it's a 500, then it's going to fail the test case. For example, let me take you here. Smoke test.
Mm-hmm.
Here's report. Let's narrow down to failed. Test results. These two failing. If I go here, navigate to SD-WAN pages, smoke test. This one failed. If I open it up, look at this.
500.
Yeah, we're
Sure.
unable to get details, but we're able to get the URL.
Yeah.
And it failed due to, there's a whole lot of other stuff, but what we need to look at is here's the URL, that's the endpoint that is trying to go and get something from it, but it's failing coming back with the 500. So chances are there's something wrong with the server on this, and it's kicking out a 500 level error. Okay.
Okay.
And it's our test case is failing as a result of that. It's not doing anything else. It failed immediately because of the 500. Another one. This is a regression test. Here is failed. Test cases. These failed. They're all mostly because of 500. Let me see this one here. This is not 500. Well, there is. Look at that. There's that URL,
500.
and here's a 500.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 500, and there's an URL. So you can copy these URLs and send it to the platform team and say, hey, this is failing. Is something down? Our test case is failing. Now there's a deeper level of 500, like 501, 502, 503. Those tell you specifically what's wrong with the server. Unfortunately, if the developer did not design the server properly, then you're just going to get a flat 500. Meaning it's telling you that there's something wrong in the server, but not telling you what is wrong. Make sense?
Yeah.
How do I know what's 501, what's 502? Go ahead.
No, like the 500, like that's server, just not specifically what in that server is wrong. Just a general message, I guess.
Correct. If they're not
Okay.
handling the errors and specifically telling the users, hey, we got the database not working, or we
Mm-hmm.
got a power outage, so it's like loading right now, or I don't know, something timed out, or your token is bad. We kicked you out for security reasons, but nothing. If 500 is like nobody's handling it and it's a generic message. But if the developers handle this properly with more logic and provide better feedback, then you're going to see more deeper. There is a fun website here. It's called HTTP Status Dogs.
Okay.
Often these codes are very hard to remember what they do. But sometimes these images,
Yeah, they help you.
they help you a little. So, for example, if I go to this 400, a bad request, but 401 is unauthorized. So maybe the user token was bad, username and password was bad, then this would come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Forbidden 403, I see a lot of that. 404, I see a lot of that too, meaning the request is being sent out, but there's nothing there. And that request must be bad. They should probably take that request out of that page because it no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
But they forgot to take it out. So you run it, and then the page calls for it, and no data is there, and the database comes back saying not found. Here's 500 level here. And again, 500 is a general saying server error, but we don't know what. But if they handle it, they would say 501, meaning, hey, we did not implement this search yet. Or bad gateway, I don't really know what that means. We see a lot of 503, meaning service unavailable. That's when we know that the server is down and somebody needs to restart it, maybe power outage, stuff like that. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can click on this and get more information on it and read about it, and follow more study into it. I have not had time to do that yet because I don't do much of these API testing. Okay?
Okay.
I will give you these links so you can have it and you can look it up. Coming back to then what is API? I know it's throwing everything all kind of in random order. Application programming interface.
Okay.
Notice that this kinds of piggybacks on our UI or GUI. What does GUI stand for?
Is that guided user interface?
Graphical.
Graphical. Okay.
Graphical user interface.
Graphical.
So they're kind of the same. Graphical user interface is this graphics, right? Or this that you see. Right?
Yeah.
All the pretty stuff. But application programming interface is the face that doesn't look like graphical. It's not that pretty, but it has the programming in it. So it is still a face. It is a sub-layer of communication device, just like a user interface. This is a sub-layer of face, like the skeleton. This is skin.
Yeah. That's the skeleton.
This is bones.
Yep.
Doesn't look pretty.
But necessary.
Yeah. How does it work? It just works with the URL.
Okay.
You get to see from the outside is URL, but what's inside is nothing but this code. It might look like this. Okay?
Okay.
It could be pages full of that. So that is the face. It's that interface. It's called application programming interface instead of graphical user interface. Right. And that's in short is API. So when you're saying API testing, you are testing that particular outside part of the code, which is the URL. You're trying to see if you send out a request, are you getting that back, and with status code of success, which is 200, and if you see some issues, then that will be with 400 and 500. Okay.
Yep.
Questions?
Nothing yet, no.
Okay. Now, how would you test it? How would you automate that? And that goes into you need some tools to do that.
Okay.
If you had a stack of these URLs, as you can see, every single page has a bunch Like this page, look at this stack.
So, yeah.
A lot. And then there's a lot of these. Today it's giving me 200. Tomorrow it could be 500 and you found a bug. So you need to check these. One way to check is your UI automation that's going to go into every single page and check it. But that takes a lot of time. You're like going through these pages. This smoke test.
Yeah. It would take a long, tedious.
Yeah, like this smoke test right here, going through every single pages. If I were to look in the console, typically at the very bottom, it tells me total time was 34 minutes.
Yeah.
But to make that particular call, it takes seconds. You saw that I was able to just copy the URL like this, put it into the web address, and get a response back immediately. So this could be done in a very simple way in a really short time. The fanciest way to do this is using Serenity framework that we're doing. And this is what we have right here, web services. This is called, the whole thing together is called web services.
Okay.
And if I go in here, this takes, let's see how long this took. Three minutes.
Mm-hmm.
For the entire website, not just ISC, the one website I showed, but also two other internal websites, all the URLs that are there. My boss, basically, he did this, he built that, and what he did is he went through every single page and he copied down these URLs.
Okay.
If it was a post request, he copied down that and he tried to find out what I have to send, the payload.
Yeah.
If he found one, he took it. If he didn't find one, I think he skipped it. He also pressed a button like this one right here, button, and then if there's a post request there, then he tried to do that too. Some calls are not going to display right away until you do some activities. Okay?
Okay.
Like I can create an account and there will be a very specific URL call going out and you may need to test that. So he went through all that hard work and really nitty gritty copied those URLs and he tried to create an automation around it using Serenity framework that we have and use JUnit for it. Okay. I have a class. What is it? You're gonna mess up the house.
I'm going outside.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Tony.
It's okay.
I don't want a single drop on the floor. Careful. All right. So I am still scraping the surface on how he does that.
Okay.
I added a few things, but I haven't been able to heavily work on it.
Mm-hmm.
To able to completely figure out. I keep forgetting how to do this. The beauty of this automation is that it's there and it's automatically getting run in here. We get to see whether it's passing or failing. Right now it's failing. I can click on it, open it up, and it's telling me a 1% fail. I can go into that broken and look for ISC get request. There's 123 requests here, 124. Not all of them failed. Maybe one of them. Let's open that up. These are all the calls. Okay. What he did is he's only displaying the differences of the URL. Before this, it's like messagey.com, messagey.com, messagey.
Yeah.
So
redundant.
He took that part out. He noticed that there's a difference right after the gateway, those URLs. So he's testing this one. This one failed. This is the same one that failed that we saw when I took you to that site with the 500.
Yeah. That error message, yeah.
Yeah. So if I click open, it has some information right here with 500 failed, and
Yeah, runtime exception.
yeah, I request query. Here's the response that came out, which also has the error on it. So he did that. This is amazing. You're not gonna find this out in the market at all. Very few people know how to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and if you talk about this, I mean, this is like, if you can say that your company does it, you don't have to say you built it,
Yeah.
but that you have something similar. Just talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. What are you gonna use then? The tools that are readily available and most companies use. Tools to test API. Number one is Postman. And two is SOAP UI. Okay. AP showed us SOAP UI. It didn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
So I'm not even going to go there. I used to tell in the interviews that I know Postman and SOAP UI, although I didn't know anything. And I could see it in their eyes that they were suspicious.
Yeah.
It's best just to learn one and stick with one. And I recommend learn Postman.
Postman, okay.
I won't be able to teach you Postman entirely. I will demo you a little bit right now.
Okay. Are there good videos out about how much you can with Postman, or not really?
I try to find here and there, hit or miss, but do watch.
Okay. Okay. All right.
See which one you like, whichever, and then work with some. Have you
Okay.
downloaded Postman?
No, I haven't downloaded Postman.
Okay.
I'm going to.
It's pretty easy. Just go to Google, download Postman. Go to this Postman site, and the latest version, and follow the system prompt, and it's going to load it for you. It's going to open up just like you see on my screen, like this.
All right.
So what this website does, or this not website, this is a desktop application you just downloaded.
Yeah.
You get to create these requests that you saw in here, and you get to kick it off with the send button. Right?
Oh, okay.
You can go to say new, and you can say a request for every single one of them. So create a basic request. There are some complex one. I've never used anything like that. A collection is a set of requests. But let's say I say request. It gives me this window saying, what do you want to name it? A good request, what we did was create a contact. I can name it and use that same URL that went out in the database, and same James, whatever last name I gave of that contact information for that particular URL. I can give it a name. And then down here, it's going to say, ask me, where do you want to store it? Which collection do you want it to be part of? And I have these collections already in here. I can select one, or I could say, no, create a new one for me. And I could call this a new collection. Okay. It probably does not like the space. Or did it not create one? New collection. Enter. Yeah, it created new.
Okay. Yep, right there.
That would become a folder on my this section right here. Okay, and it's going to have those requests.
Yep.
So this particular request I'm creating is going to be part of it. Save and continue. It gives me this blank right here. I get to choose whether it's a GET request or a POST request or a PUT request, but most of them are GET and POST.
Okay.
And PUT, you may hear stuff in the interview, you can memorize these, right? But go in the order. GET is the highly popular, most requests are that. Then the second is POST, and very few PUT, and I have seen very little of these.
Okay.
You may delete a contact and then get a delete request. Okay. For example, let me quickly see if that works here. What if I go into this account, go to manage contacts, here's the list of contacts. I want to clear this and I want to see what request I get here if I were to delete this contact. If I delete it, there's that request. If I open it up, it's a delete request. Okay?
Okay.
Response, nothing. It just deleted. So study this request, and they might ask you, so what is a delete request? And you can explain the situation when you might see one.
Okay.
To be ready. But you don't have to go all this far down here.
Okay.
You have the time and you are curious, I would say go for it, learn every single one of these.
Okay.
I don't know all of them. Some of them I know. In here, you're going to paste the URL. So let's say if I do a delete request, go in here, I would copy this URL. Okay.
Okay.
And I would paste it here.
Okay.
And you need to provide some information like authorization. And there's a whole lot of stuff in here that I'm not very familiar with. But some of these we use called bearer token. And in this, you're going to be using a token that your developer is going to give you. Often you
Okay.
find it on the website right here. See that?
Yeah, the bearer and yep.
Bearer, and you can take it from here. And go up to here, copy that. Chances are it's not going to work, so because I had a hard time making it work. Let's say I put the bearer token. This is a delete request. I've already deleted this contact. So this might come out as an error because it's no longer there with that contact ID.
So if you went into your backend server website for internal employees, looked up a random account ID number and pasted it right there instead of 58513, since you deleted it, it should work then.
Correct. If I had
Okay.
a valid one that is already existing, then it might work.
Okay.
In this case, it's not.
Yeah.
There are some header information. Generally, it's populated automatically.
Okay.
There's some logic behind this, which I haven't found anywhere educating what these are. But just leave it as standard. If it's a post request, then you would have a body.
Yeah.
In the body, generally we we say raw, and we post, we put in the JSON right here.
Yeah.
And you can select JSON, and let's say if you had it in a JSON format, it would show up in a pretty way. You can beautify, it's gonna also make it look pretty. That payload, when you send out, so right now I don't have a payload. We're just gonna be sending out this request of delete. All you have to do is just click on send. Let me click that and see what happens. I sent, and look down here. It came back with the status of 200.
200, okay. Yeah.
So I don't know why it's deleting already something that's deleted.
Yeah.
It came back with the 200. It should come back with an error.
Yeah.
But it still gave me 200. So I could have requests like this. I can save this. And next time I come back, I go to my new collections. Where is it? Is that? No, that's new collection. I thought I stored it under.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
It probably didn't. Let me see. Save as. New collection. No, it's maybe it doesn't like the name. But let's say it's giving me this one called EDR.
Yeah, we do EDR.
So save to EDR. There's that EDR. And if I open this up, there's that that I created, create a contact. And if I ever need to check whether create a contact is working or not, instead of me, sorry, that should have been delete a contact,
Yeah.
It's I should have said delete a contact. Let's do that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Delete a contact and then save. So delete a contact. I could go in and use my UI automation to find a contact, let's say Ajay Pandya, and delete. Okay, he's one of the executives. I shouldn't delete him. And I could delete that person, or I could use Postman and have something set up like this, and find out a contact that I can delete, and change this contact ID and hit a send. If I get a 200, I'm good to go.
And you deleted it.
Yeah, the function is working.
Okay.
The back end is working. That means chances are the front end is also going to work. But this is faster because it gives me data right away.
Yep.
Now there is a way to automate this where it's going, well, I don't know a way to automate this, but I can have a logic built in that if this comes out with the 400, then give me this report and stuff like that. That is very advanced level of Postman.
Okay.
Most folks I know in my team, and even the developers, they don't know how to use that in the advanced level. So if you can just explain your interviewer how I created this, okay?
Okay.
If they say, describe how you use the Postman. How do you set up an API call? How do you set up an API testing? Then you say, generally Postman, I create a new request, and it could be either post request or a get request, and I store it in a collection. I give it a name, for a reasonable name for what that call is doing in the backend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I store that under a certain collections in it to organize stuff. And if this is a post request, then I add a JSON body to post in there. And often, there is an authorization required. So we use bearer token. The developer gives us the bearer token, or I pick up from the website developer tool and use the bearer token for access. Use the payload if it's supposed to request, and send it off and look at what status code I got. I want a 200. If I get a 400 or 500, I have a logic set up that gives me a report and lets me know which ones failed, which one passed.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
If they ask you, is there a way to automate those, whether they will get kicked off, you can be honest and say, yes, I'm sure there's a way to do that. I have not done it. Wasn't not so much needed for my company. Just kind of get away from it. Okay. Don't go too deep, and then they will ask you questions and you may not be able to answer. You don't need to know how to do this stuff. Okay, it's pretty easy when you go into a workplace. Anybody can show you what to do, and you would be working productively for them on the fly. There is no coding needed. You saw that.
Yeah.
Zero code needed. You just copy paste, put stuff that dev is gonna give you. That's it. And you analyze the report, whether it's a 200, whether it's a 400, or a 500. But they want you to know and have automation background because they want the whole package. They want jack of all trade.
Okay.
So that someday, with that 400, you're smart enough to assess what it is, or help out the developers or lead them. They don't want somebody who has zero idea what this 200 is or what the 400 is. And then bring you in. Now they have to train you from scratch, and
Yeah.
still worried whether after training whether you're gonna be up to speed or not.
Yep.
That's their fear. And with your communication, you're not trying to don't get frustrated if there's stuff you don't know. Explain what you know and be honest about what you don't.
Okay.
Just and then say that, yeah, if they ask you a tricky question, say it's possible. I'm sure it's doable. I don't know how to, because I have not had a chance to work with that, or had a need for my company at this point, and that's why I don't know how to do it. But uh, I'm sure that's way to do it. Always be positive about that. Don't say don't say no. Say there should be a way to do that. Okay. And if that's what you're using in your company, I'm willing to learn and be productive at it. Just throw it out there.
Yep. Okay.
And it might happen that you get hired for that company and never touch Postman at all, but they would still like to interview you for it. All right.
Okay.
So, questions about this?
No questions. It's actually a lot more simpler than what I thought it would be.
And here's a couple of things that I have. I hardly ever touch it. This is a post request. Here's the body.
Yeah.
It's in JSON. And if I send out the request.
Do you ever use anything besides JSON? Like whenever we inspect the network with our development tool, is it ever XML or is it always pretty much JSON?
Pretty much JSON.
Okay.
Notice it also came back with the data saying no.
No. Yeah.
There was nothing found for this query JSON that I send out. Let me try this one. There's the JSON body. Again, this is a type of query. I can change this query. Notice
to whatever you want it to be.
Notice there's a start date.
Yep.
End date. That's weird. Yeah, that's fine. 2012, 2020. Yeah. Send. It's loading. There's a 400.
403 or
to be specific. No valid crumb was included in the request, so there must be something I'm missing there.
Mm-hmm.
The response comes back with error, so I have to figure out maybe my payload is bad. I'm not sending out proper data. And if I were to go back in there into 403, what does the 403 mean? And that will be forbidden in this case. But that could be that my payload was bad and it didn't let me access the data I wanted.
Yeah.
All right. You know about the tools. You know about the different types of requests being sent. You know the relevance of the URL that goes in here. You know tools. There are SOAP UI and Postman. You saw kind of a demo of Postman. You saw response, how they come in. You saw how JSON data is getting kicked out into from your client side to the server side, and then communicating with the database with some sort of query with a question mark, and then coming back. All of that needs to be tested. And you, as a test automation engineer, might be required to do some of those testing as well. But your
Okay.
UI generally covers everything, but you saw the UI test is slow.
Yeah.
However, if you did an API testing either with Postman like this, or if you did it with Serenity, Fancy, your own created something like this, it's going to take you minutes and you cover everything.
Yeah.
Questions?
No questions.
All right. How clear are you on this? And do you need me to go any deeper with this? Maybe another day to set up. What do you think?
No, I think I'm pretty clear on it. If this is all there is to it, unless obviously, like you were saying, like you really get in depths of what you can do with Postman and super high level API, but just general basic level API, I feel like I got a pretty good gist of what's going on. And if I had to describe it to somebody in the interview, I think I could do, like you were saying, like, you create a new request, either a get or pull request, sorry.
Mhm.
And then sometimes you'll use a delete or some of the other ones that I can start studying, but very rarely. And then, you just go forth your bearer tokens and URL and the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can get across the idea that I know what I'm talking about to a good enough level.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was just started looking at your resume. There are a couple of things, maybe here and there, cosmetics, wording, and so
Okay.
forth. So give me some time. Just been very busy.
Yeah. No. I understand. No big deal.
Yeah. So let me work on it
Just
tomorrow as
yeah.
well.
Yeah. Just let
Meanwhile,
me know whenever you're ready, and we can go from then.
yeah, and I will uh, look for that file right now, and let me see where I can post this. Is it okay if I post it on the website, like Tech Job Market?
Yeah.
In here, somewhere here, let's see, build resume, upload resume. So in this section, build resume.
Yeah.
No, sample resumes. I will create a page right here. It's called "Tell me about yourself" or "Who am I?"
Okay.
And in that "Who am I?" I'm gonna have that template. It's gonna be like that.
Okay.
And open it up, save it. You fill in your information of of what you provided. Let's look it up for a second. Uh, from at Gmail. So these companies right here that you have, you want to create stories for that.
Okay.
How many years you worked for um, these companies? You have Mortgage World here, Ocean First Bank, Genoa Healthcare. This is looking pretty good.
Okay.
And then you have Masergy. So
Yeah.
yeah, summarize yourself, but try to fit into that template. You would provide a kind of an eye contact, or if you're face to face. If not, just try to see if they're quietly listening. Maybe they interrupt you. That means I think they want to move on to the next question.
Okay.
So you want to gauge that to determine how long you want to, how lengthy you want to make it. Do you want to go deeper into all of those work experiences briefly, or just want to talk about what you did in your latest company, which is Masergy, basically? So
Okay.
that you want to do. More of a domain knowledge, I will talk to you after, let's say, a mock interview. I will tell
Okay.
you that, hey, you might need some information from Masergy. Then I might have a session with you and demo you how Masergy works.
Okay.
So you can add that into your notes and stuff.
Sure.
Okay. Question before we end the class today?
Oh no, no questions.
Yeah, I will on a daily basis now. I'm going to reach out to you as I'm done with this, and
Yeah. So you can keep going next step and so forth.
exactly. So I'm with you. Communicate with me. I'll ping
Okay.
you, text you just as soon as I uploaded that. Who am I form?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you.